Hi, I'm Lani Balyar and I'm going to discuss about moral dilemma. So let us define first what is dilemma. Dilemma by definition is a situation in which a difficult choice has to be made between two or more alternatives, especially equally undesirable ones. Basically, dilemma is a situation where a person is forced to choose between two or more conflicting options and neither of which is acceptable. So, what is the difference of a dilemma to a typical problem? So, when we say typical problem, there is an obvious option nga imong mapili, and obvious po yung result sa option nga imong gipili. Kung right ba siya or wrong, kung good ba siya or evil. Kana nga option imong gipili. Example sa aning typical problem kay hapit na ka malate and sa imong morning imurang nabuhat kay mag kanang naligo ra ka o nag-ready sa padulong sa school like nakasuot na ka sa imong uniform and such. Pero diri ka wa ka kakaon sa imong breakfast. So na kay options nga pwede pilian. First option nimo kay magpabilin ka for a little bit para mo kaon sa breakfast ya ka mo to sa school or second option nimo mo ka sa school and pwede ra ka dito mo kaon sa breakfast nimo. So diri kung unsa man nga option nimong pwede pilion, clear gyud ang result nga imong makuha. Kung first ay kung imong pilion kay ang first nga option, kabalo ka kung unsay mahitabo sa imuha. Kung ang second option pwede pilion, kabalo pud ka kung unsa jud ang mahitabo. So muna siya ang typical problem. Sa dilemma, kung may dilemma, na siya options pareha sa typical problem, pero kani nga mga options kay clear, ay dili clear, unclear ang kanang result sa imong alternatives or options nga imong gipili. So muna siya ang ilang kaibahan, so, muna ilang difference. Kung mayroon tag typical problem, obvious or clear ang result sa alternative nga imong gipili. Kung mayroon pagkag dilemma, unclear ang result nga imong gipili. Yeah, unclear siya. Dili siya klaro nga tama, wa po'y klaro nga mali ang alternative nga imong gipili. So that's it. So let's move on to moral dilemma. Moral dilemma is a situation where there are two or more actions can possibly do. There is a moral lesson or there are moral lessons for doing such actions, and you cannot do all the possible actions presented to you. You only need to choose one. So basically, a moral dilemma is a situation that begs an agent to choose between two alternatives with equal weight wherein both alternatives are either good or both are evil, but the agent or us humans, moral agent, or like the individuals, cannot do both or all alternatives present. So moral dilemma is parehara siya sa dilemma, but moral dilemma concerns about the rightness or goodness of our choices or kung unsa to mo napili nga choice or like yeah, alternative nga napili. So diri again, walay clear nga tama or mali sa pagpili sa mga alternatives. Muna siya. So example, a moral dilemma kay naay isa ka seafarer. Then diri while kanang along the way sa ilang padulong sa desired destination, naunlod ilang barko. So, luckily, kaning seafarer kay nakasakay siya sa na siya lifeboat nga nasakyan. So, syempre, diri kay na siya mga kauban nga individuals. Pero some of the individuals diri kay least able to protect themselves like mga bata o mga senior citizens. Diri dayon like well gapalutaw-lutaw ang lifeboat. Nakakita siya og mga people pa nga galutaw pa. Like walay mga life-saving equipments nga pwede mo tabang aning nga mga people nga nasa laot. Diri dayon kay natin kay mga choices nga pwede pilian. Diri na din mosulod ang moral dilemma. First nga moral nga choice nga pwede pilian nimo kay first choice kay sagupon ba nimo ang mga tao, like sagupon like pa magpatungtong kag tao sa inyong lifeboat nga gisakyan. Pero diri kay since limited ramang kayo ang people nga pwede mo sakay sa imong lifeboat, like sa inyong lifeboat, kay may possibility nga muunlod po inyong lifeboat and madads mo tanan, like together with those people nga naglutaw-lutaw pa. Second option is pilion ninyo inyong grupo. Like pilion ninyo kung nga magpadayon o padulong sa shore, like kung asang mabaw. So diri kay murag dili nimo tabangan ang mga tao pa nga galutaw-lutaw. Dayon third option nimo diri is you sacrifice yourself. No, imong slot, imong sacrifice para na kay mapatungtong nga tao, na kay matabangan nga tao. Pero diri kini possibility nga madads ka together with those people nga wala pa nasagip. Kay of course wala na makakasakay sa sa lifeboat and wala kay life saving equipment nga makahelp sa imo to survive. Dayon kuan pod diri kay among sa kadaghan sa tao nga kay nanginahanglan og tabang, isa ra na tabangan. So mun siya diri din makapangutan na ka what matters the most. No, mosulod din diri imong values. So kung unsa ba jud ang gamatter ba ang certainty na mabuhi itong naa sa lifeboat or certainty na mamatay ang nasa lifeboat o ang naa sa tao ay nasa tao o ang mga naa sa laot na mga people nga wala pa natabangan. So muna siya ang example sa moral dilemma. So moral dilemma has three levels. First is the personal moral dilemma. Second level would be the organizational dilemma. And the third level is the structural moral dilemma. So personal moral dilemma is when your decision in a situation where there is moral conflict is the cause of either your own, that of another person, or a group of people's potential harm. Example of this dilemma, this level of dilemma is imagine yourself as a father or a mother of one, or like nakaisa ka anak. Tapos in that morning, before ka neto sa work, you promised your child na muli kag sa iyo para makapag-banding pa mo or like makapagdula-dula pa mo. Ana. Dayon, pauling na ka from your work kay nakitaan nga isa ka stranger. And nakita gid nimo nga kani nga stranger kay kailangan jud siyang tabang. So dari dayon kay musulod imong dilemma. No, diri mag-start imong dilemma. First kay kuan first option nimo diri kay tuparon nimo yung gi-promise sa imong anak nga kuan kanang nga muli kag sayo. Tapos diri din kay dili nimo matabangan ang stranger nga nanginahanglan jud tabang. Then second dayon option nimo kay tabangan nimo ang stranger pero ma-neglect nimo yung gi-promise sa imong anak. So then that's an example of personal dilemma. Next is organizational dilemma. So the organizational dilemma is when a member or members of the organization is in a situation where there is moral conflict and the decision will potentially harm either some members of the group or the entire organization itself. So example aning organizational dilemma kay in a hospital setting naisa ka patient. Let's name this patient A. Kani si patient A kay na-confine na siya sa hospital for like a year or almost a year. So basically kani nga patient kay na comatose. Dayon si patient A kay kanang kuan siya kanang nag-iisa na lang sa buhay. So living alone. Tas iyang hospital bills kay murag gakadako and walay people nga pwede makatabang sa iya to pay for his or her bills ani nga patient. Then next like tapad lang na room sa patient A na ay mga victims sa isa ka aksidente. So four ka victims, and these victims kay can need sila transplant, major transplant, like agarang attention gyud. So like need sila og heart, lungs, liver, og pancreas, like for example lang, kani ilang needs. And kailangan sila nga matransplantan good diretso para mabuhi. And kung matransplantan sila ani nga mga internal organs kay dako gyud possibility nga mabuhi. Pero kani si patient A, sa ay dili, kaning four victims, let's name them patient B, C, D, and E. So, si patient A di ay kay low, since dugay, naging kay siya, like, na-confine sa hospital, kay low na kayo yung possibility nga mabuhi pa. So, muna siya. Pero kaning four, once nga transplantan sila, kay, na dako yung possibility nga mabuhi pa yun upat. So, if you are the doctor, dahil na din sa moral dilemma, if you are the doctor, are you willing to sacrifice the life of patient A to save the lives of the four patients, like katong four patients? Kaya kanina job, si patient A di ay po, kay healthy kayang internal organs. Like, healthy siya, na lang siya defect something sa iyaha nga nakapakumato sa iyaha. Pero all in all, like iyang whole body kay healthy gid siya. Nalay something busa na kumato siya. So, are you willing to sacrifice the life of patient A to save the lives of four patients nga katong nga nanginahanglan og transplant, or kuan i-save gyapon nimo si patient A pero na possibility nga low gyapon ang kanang kanang na possibility nga kaning four ka accident victims kay madads kay wala pay kuan kanang donors nga mag willing mo donate aning ilahang needed nga internal organs. So that's it. That's the example of organizational dilemma. Kung iyahabang i-save ang life sa isa ka patient, to, i- i- uh, i-willing ba niya i-sacrifice ang life sa isa ka patient to save the four ka patients, or kung i-save niya ang isa ka patient pero low risk ay like high risk ang four kay na possibility nga madads kay wala agaran nga attention nga mahatag kay wala pay donor sa internal organs. So that's it. That's an example of organizational dilemma. Lastly, the third level of moral dilemma is structural dilemma. Structural dilemma is when a person or group of persons who holds high-level positions in the society faces a morally conflicting situation wherein the social system is affected. So, example of structural dilemma is ano, naay isa ka politician. Let's say, mudagan siya pagka-mayor. Sa iyang campaign period, na siya gipramisan nga indigenous people sa iyahang place nga gadaganan, na promisan niya nga pag mudaog siya, kung suportahan siya ani nga mga indigenous people, ihatag niya tong land nga gipuy-an sa indigenous group sa ilaha, no, sa indigenous people. Nya kuan nya at the same time, during sa iyang campaign period, nabod gipromisan kaning nga politician na isa ka mining company. Kaning iyang gi-promise nga maghatag siya yuta nga pwede ma-miningan aning mining company. So luckily, or fortunately, nakadaog kani siya nga politician. So diri dayon mo sulod iyang moral dilemma. First niyang option diri kay kung ihatag niya ang land sa indigenous people, ay possibility nga na siya makasuhan siya or something inana sa mining company kay wala niya gisunod yang promise nga ihatag ang land. Basically kani nga land nga ilang gina-talk about kay or kaning akong gina-talk about nga land nga ihatag sa mining company kay mo ni siya ang land nga ginapuy-an sa indigenous people. So kung ihatag ni mayor or like newly elected mayor ang land sa indigenous people, may possibility nga makasuhan siya sa mining company nga yung gipromisan. Second option niya is kung ihatag niya ang land sa mining company. Pero diri mawalan og puy-anan ang mga kani nga indigenous group, no? So like na possibility nga mapariwara kay like or like mapadulong bisan asa kaning indigenous group kay nawalan naman sila place nga mapuy-an. So ina ni siya. So that's an example of structural dilemma na involved diri ang high level position sa society na individual which is a mayor, no, na naa siya morally conflicting situation nga ginaharap. So that's all for lesson 3 of moral dilemma. Thank you.
In continuation, Lesson 4, Freedom. Now, why only human beings can be ethical? There are claims where morality can also be seen in animals. Dame John Morris Goodall reported that sometimes chimpanzees show a truly selfless concern for the well-being of others. However, other thinkers like Immanuel Kant, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Peter Peter Carothers, and various religions believe that only human can be ethical. The fundamental difference between animal ethics and human ethics, according to Saint Thomas Aquinas, is that animals behave instinctively while human behavior is rational. Instinctive behavior, a hardwired inborn characteristic response to specific environmental stimuli. An example is the altruistic behavior of social animals. Altruistic is showing a disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others. However, animals do behave in this way to ensure its reproductive success, rather than out of selfless act. An example of this is that suicide attacks of working honeybees to protect their colony from intruders. Moreover, there also exists a reciprocal altruism where animal will do an act and expect a similar act in the same manner. An example for this is that chimpanzees scratching the back of another chimpanzees. Moving on, we have here rational behavior. Rational behavior is a decision-making process where the person acts in ways that best achieve her needs in accordance with his or her set of preferences, priorities, and principles. It is also tied to moral standards. Human person is free to decide what to do and free to act on his or her decision. Now, when we ask why only human beings can be ethical, only human beings can be ethical because only humans has the capacity for free moral judgment. The foundation of morality. An analogy of Clive Staples Lewis, a British writer and lay theologian, linked morality to a fleet of ships. To him, though ship must sail well on its own, each must also coordinate with other ships at all times to stay in formation and avoid collisions. Also, the fleet must have a destination or purpose for the journey, because if the ship was just aimlessly sailing, then it has failed its ultimate purpose, that of getting from one point to another. This analogy is a helpful or handy way to think of the relations between morality to self, to others, and to our ultimate end. However, a ship is under the command of a captain, and a person is someone who is free to decide his or her course. Why is freedom crucial in your ability to make moral decisions? The personal aspect of morality is about developing virtue so that thinking morally, performing moral acts, and choosing to do good becomes a habit. Virtue is your thought or behavior guided by and displays high standards. It is developed through time from an act to becoming habits. Once a person embodies, this will become a part of his or her character. A virtuous person is consistent in his or her moral principle. Also, a virtuous person can become a standard for everyone to follow. Moreover, virtuous person is like an efficiently run ship. They both harness the skill to weather storms. But then again, a ship is under control of a captain, while a virtuous person is free to cultivate his or her values. With that, a person can abandon it. She has the freedom to do so. Moreover, virtue can't be coerced. For a person to be virtuous, she must be free. Rules are set so people can live in harmony. In this way, we can recognize our rights, at the same time, the rights of other people. If we further analyze the analogy, if ever the ships lost all communication from one another, a catastrophic event will happen. All will end up destroying one another, just like a person. If we lost our sense of respect for the freedom of others, this is where the feud begins. Moreover, when a person recognizes other people's right, only then that person can achieve or be able to pursue his or her potential, not only for itself but for the others as well. Now, when we talk about why is freedom crucial in your ability to make moral decisions, the answer is it is crucial because it is like a sharp two-edged sword. Either you used it in the good way or not. In the analogy, the ship has purpose, and that is by getting to one point to another. Now, my question is that why are you here? What is your purpose? And is a debatable topic in various religions. However, it doesn't neglect the fact that freedom is essential with one views of his or her ultimate purpose. As Lord Acton expresses, that person's freedom is so precious that God will not take over and control of the person's life even when that person badly misuses his or her freedom. So regardless of how you view your ultimate purpose, one thing is clear. Only a free person can understand his or her ultimate end.
Hi everyone, this is Dory Lee, and I'm gonna discuss about the human person as a free being. In philosophy, a human being is more than its biological components. The human being is a person endowed or given with characteristics that are material, spiritual, rational, and free. So let's define a human person. A human person is a being with inborn properties that he or she uses to direct his or her own development towards self-fulfillment. Isa sa inborn properties that a human person can possess is freedom. So, in the Aristotelian idea, the word being suggests to actuality, existence, and actual condition or circumstance. Philosophical insights on freedom. So freedom is frequently mentioned in this book. Philosophers actually has an extensive concept on it. But here are some philosophical insights that is compiled on the book. First is freedom is a gift. According to Gabriel Marcel, freedom is a gift given to us by God. It is also the ability to act and make choices significantly. These free acts are important since they establish our own identity as human beings.
It is not simply about making random choices because we are not free if the choices are trivial. So freedom is actually about the potential para makamake taog mga importante na decisions. Next is freedom is complementary to reason. It is stated in the ethical doctrines of Aristotle that freedom and reason are complementary, like a twin to each other. So the human person as a moral agent must exercise practical rationality in order to determine how to pursue his or her ultimate end, or what we call as telos. So as a free person, one must have a self-direction or goal rather than impulsively go along with circumstances. To consciously create meaning or make sense of things, like for events, occurrences, phenomena, or situations, Aristotle thought that freedom and reason are both necessary faculties. Third insight is freedom is absolute. There's this concept from Jean-Paul Sartre, an existentialist philosopher, that states that freedom is not a freedom to do something or anything. In Sartre's perspective, the human person is absolutely free. In terms of freedom, we can set apart the human person from other creatures. Like animals are free unless they are caged. They can roam around, pwede sila makaon if they're hungry, and they can sleep whenever they wanted to. There's this freedom called freedom from restriction. It's a primitive kind which has a motive for survival. So it is said that animals also have a notion of freedom, like nasa sila idea about being free. So when they are caged, they will usually attempt to break free. In contrast, humans have a higher kind of freedom. This is beyond freedom from restriction. Like a person in jail is still free, free in the sense that a convict is free to redefine themselves. Free pa sila makathink or i-change nila ilang kaugalingon to become a better person. Human persons are free to make choices or decisions. Pwede na to ni magamit para ma-accomplish na to atong mga goals higher than satisfying our basic needs. The fourth is freedom demands responsibility. Sartre believed that a person always has a choice. We must decide on something. He stated that freedom is the capacity to choose and that responsibility follows freedom. So even though you think you're not choosing anything, he said that it is still a choice to choose nothing. He also has this concept of responsibility to freedom. We are free to decide on our own, but this is accompanied with consequences. These outcomes of freedom must be tolerated by the person. Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher, advocates that a person can and should choose to act, but his or her actions should be that which would result in harmony. The idea was that in any society, the exercise of one's freedom is not absolute. Same as before, the person is free to do anything, but it comes with consequences. Responsibility as a moral quality serves as a voluntary check and balance of one's freedom. Limitless freedom is dangerous without a proper balance, and the great social injustices have resulted from such radical mindsets.